All right, let's jump right in. Donald Trump just pulled off a major 1-2 punch at the Supreme Court, scoring 2 big wins on the exact same day. But what this really means for presidential power, well, that's the real story, and we are breaking it all down right now.
But hang on, before we get into the weeds, if you want to stay on top of stories just like this one, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss what's coming next. Okay? Let's do this.
So what is all the fuss about? Think of it like a Supreme Court doubleheader. The Trump administration walked away with favorable outcomes in 2 totally different cases. Now, these aren't the final verdicts, but they are huge procedural wins that basically give his agenda a green light to keep moving, for now. First up, we've got the tariff tussle. And this whole thing really boils down to one massive question about presidential power. Can the president just, declare a trade emergency on his own and start slapping tariffs on other countries?
The entire case is balanced on a single law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It says the president can impose tariffs if there's an unusual and extraordinary threat. And believe me, the whole legal fight is over what those 4 little words actually mean.
So, what was this so-called threat? The Trump administration pointed to 2 main things. First, fentanyl coming across the border. And second, those ongoing trade deficits we always hear about with countries like China, Mexico, and Canada. The billion-dollar question for the court is, do those things legally count as an unusual and extraordinary threat? Well, when the lower courts took a look at those arguments, their answer was pretty clear. It was a big, fat nope. A U.S. Court of Appeals basically said, sorry, you can't use this specific emergency law to justify these specific tariffs. So here's how it all got to the very top. Step 1, Trump puts the tariffs in place. Step 2, the lower courts shoot them down. Step 3, the administration rushes in with a speedy appeal. And that brings us to the final, critical step. The Supreme Court says, okay, we'll be the referee. We're in the big leagues now. So, the bottom line here is this fight is nowhere near over. By agreeing to take the case, the Supreme Court has pretty much sent this whole thing into sudden death overtime. The final whistle has definitely not been blown. Okay, so that was win number 1. Now let's get to the second case, which is all about the money. Specifically, who's really in charge of the cash that Congress sets aside? Is it Congress or is it the president? $4 billion. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's how much foreign aid is at the center of this whole dispute. And this is money that Congress had already given the thumbs up to spend. And here's the conflict in a nutshell. Congress passes a law to spend the money. The Trump administration hits the brakes and blocks it. So a federal judge steps in and orders the administration to open up the wallet and release the cash. Sounds simple, right? Well, not so fast. Because that's when Chief Justice John Roberts himself stepped into the ring and slammed a giant pause button on the whole thing. He issued a temporary stay, which means that $4 billion is completely frozen for now. The lower court's order, it's on hold. And that is win number 2 for the administration. And the lower court judge, Amir Ali, he really didn't hold back. He said the administration offered no justification to ignore what he called the bedrock expectation that when Congress sets aside money, the White House has to spend it. It's like rule number 1 of how government is supposed to work. But of course, the administration's top lawyer fired right back, arguing the judge's order was the real problem here. He called it a grave and urgent threat to the separation of powers. So you've got both sides pointing fingers, each accusing the other of breaking the Constitution. A classic day in Washington. And here's what makes it even spicier. The criticism isn't just coming from Democrats. Republican Senator Susan Collins, who actually runs the committee in charge of the money, called the administration's move a clear violation of the law. Yeah, when people from the president's own party start calling foul, you know it's a really big deal.
So let's zoom out for a second. These 2 cases might seem like they're about totally different things. One's about trade, the other's about foreign aid, but they are tied together by one huge theme, a massive power struggle at the very heart of American government.
It really all comes down to this classic heavyweight bout you learned about in high school civics, the president versus Congress versus the courts. It's the ultimate system of checks and balances, and right now, both of these cases are pushing that system to its absolute limits. Who gets the final word on trade? Who really controls the country's checkbook?
Let's just cut through all the legal jargon for a second. The tariff case is asking, can a president use some vague emergency law to basically invent their own trade policy? And the foreign aid case asks, can a president just decide to ignore a direct order from Congress to spend money? These are fundamental questions about just how far a president's power goes.
So,
Where are we headed from here? Because remember, these were just early round wins, not the final knockout. What should you be looking out for next?
Okay, you might want to mark your calendars. As soon as next week, the full Supreme Court could decide if they're going to extend that pause on the foreign aid money. And then, in early November, the justices are going to hear the actual arguments in that huge tariff case. Things are moving really, really fast.
So this all boils down to one giant question. When we're talking about big decisions on money and trade, who should have the final say? The president, who can act fast in an emergency? Or Congress, the branch that's supposed to represent the people? I really want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. And that is the breakdown of this massive Supreme Court showdown. Hey, if this explainer helped you figure out what's really going on, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives just like this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.